And good morning, Hoosier fans, and welcome to a very exciting, very victorious edition of Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Purdue. What a great morning. How do you feel, Hoosier Nation? Some of you might feel a little hungover. Those listening a little later in the day, slept in and everything. You earned it. Wow, what a game, guys. Last night, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to defeat the Purdue Boilermakers 79-74, increasing the record to 16-7, 7-5 in the Big Ten. And man, what a hell of a game last night.
Indiana basketball, excuse my language, is the
what a game. What a game, Coach. Thank you for that. Just a hell of a first half from IU, just playing some of the best ball they've played the whole year, offensive and defensively, just scoring at a high level and just being aggressive, turning Purdue over a lot more than they had been turned over, I think, in any of their games. Finishing the half up by 15, kind of the largest deficit that Purdue has seen so far this year. I think they had said a stat at one point that the largest deficit Purdue has seen up until this point was 9 points. Second half, we were a little leery. We all know kind of the thing that we need to do: come out the second half a little strong, keep it going, and weren't going to hold down this Purdue team for the whole game. We knew that some runs would get going, and Edey was going to get his, and they started to do that. A little rough start to the second half. IU's defense wasn't as aggressive at denying the entry passes or just kind of making their guards uncomfortable, forcing them out. So it got close there towards the end and everything, but IU held on to kind of keep the lead the whole entire game and did what they needed to do to close things out at the end. So just so exciting. What a great game. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Here with me always is Martha the Mop Lady. Might have a few other guests pop in and out as we go along on this show, but just such an exciting game. Martha, give me your opening feelings.
A game that we go into it with. I mean, there's some question marks, right? We had those 5 games where we were playing really, really well. We had kind of a dud at Maryland, and then you come home and you know what type of atmosphere it's going to be. And there was just a buzz around the game, a buildup. The students lining up 9 hours before the game, and so you knew it was going to be big game atmosphere at Assembly Hall, and can we sustain the start that you're going to get because of that buzz? And yeah, we came out hot. The defense was, to your point, just absolutely tremendous, especially in the first half. And even on top of that, the offense, I mean, guys were hitting shots. We were hardly missing in the first half. And of course, you think, can we sustain this? They're going to make a run. How can we, how are we going to be able to handle that? And it got a little rocky there for a minute, right? I think that they made some good adjustments. At halftime, I think we kind of played a little bit passive in the second half, but the most important thing is we found a way. We found a way while, Coach said it after the game. We're not at full strength. I think sometimes that gets lost. You're missing Xavier Johnson. Jordan Geronimo's not providing that athleticism off the bench. Race Thompson's playing at what looks to be about 65% to me. I mean, he doesn't have the bounce, can't cut like he did. So to find a way to win with all of that said, I think it just speaks to where this team's at, where they continue to be once, because they're going to get some of these guys back, and they're going to be hopefully at full strength going down the stretch. So I think anytime you beat your rival or rank number 1, but you do it while facing some of that adversity, I think it's really fun to see. I'm excited. I'm glad I'm here happy, because I would have been really upset having that first half and losing. So I'm glad to be here, and it was just a really exciting game from start to finish.
Yeah, and as you spoke about there, what Coach said, not being at full health and everything, it's amazing to think about what this team is going to be able to do. I mean, just adding X into this. And again, it's something that we have to kind of be a little patient with when he gets back, because we don't know if he's going to be at full speed or how he's going to be able to get up to full speed. He has been, again, practicing, working out, doing what he can with his limitations right now, but just so exciting to think about adding a piece like X to this type of team. Just that other ball handler takes a little bit of that stress that you see that Jalen Hood-Schifino has in some of these games, especially in that little struggle in the second half where he was just kind of forcing things too much, playing too much of a two-man game with Trace Jackson Davis, and shots weren't falling. But you add a healthy X in there along with that to just kind of steady him and steady the team overall and bring that veteran leadership that X does. That's only on the offensive side. And then think about that ball pressure that he applies. Something that's been missing in the last couple of games is that on-ball pressure on the other team's point guard. Not to knock too much on Jalen Hood-Schifino's defense, but what X will bring to this team is just astronomical. And again, already to say that's just an amazing cherry on top of a team that's already hitting on some fantastic cylinders. Let's maybe shift then to Jalen Hood-Schifino in this game. Loved the way he was coming out in the first half and everything. Looking at his stats in this game, he ended with 16 points, 8 for 15 from the field, missed his 1 3-point shot, 4 assists. The best part of it is just 1 turnover from him and 2 steals. Fantastic game from him, I think, especially in the first half. Struggled a little bit in the second, and then comes out at the end of the game and says to coach and everything that he wants to take that last shot. And Coach Woodson says he drew up 2 plays for him. And what a ballsy thing, as he was blocked horribly earlier on in the game when he tried to go up against Edey, to do that again. And what he learned, obviously, from that previous drive is he initiates contact and gets into Edey's chest, and then just delays that beautiful scoop shot to put that basket in. What did you think of Jalen's game?
Well, when you think about his performance against Maryland early in the week, right? It was a game where he went 1 for 14, and I think he only played 11 minutes in the first half yesterday just because of foul trouble. But you also think about what he's being asked to do, right? I mean, he's being asked to defend the best guard generally on the opposing team while missing X, and on top of that, you're asking him to be a significant threat offensively. I thought he handled it for a freshman really, really well. Because Purdue's a team that, with Zach Edey down low, he just makes everybody else around him, such a threat. And, because there's so much focus on him. So Jalen was asked to play really, really solid defense, and I think he did overall. We caused a lot of turnovers, something Purdue doesn't generally do. So that was good to see. But then just his poise offensively down the stretch, I think there were at times early in the second half where he tried to force it a little bit, but those were shots he was knocking down for a while in the first half during that stretch. So you don't complain too much. I would have loved to see us try to work it through Trace a little bit more there early in the second half when they were making their run. But we found a way, and then his layup down the stretch where, the play where he fumbled it a little bit up top and drove it down and found a way to make that basket. Absolutely massive in that spot for a freshman. So, without his performance, we don't win. So you've got to leave really, really impressed with what he gave us.
Yeah. And now in the show with us and everything, you can see if you're watching on YouTube, but obviously if you're listening to podcasts, you can't hear it as well. But new addition to the show and everything. Great to have him first time this season. It's IU Artifacts, Chris Williams. Chris, teased with you on Twitter, but do you have the bagel in your possession that was thrown on the court? Have you added it to your collection?
I have not. I limit my let's say my fascination to certain things, and I don't want to be I don't want to be connected to that debacle anymore than any. But
you were at the game, so give us your kind of take on being there, yes, and the energy and everything you saw.
It really got started early on. You could kind of feel, especially when Purdue went out to do the warm up the first time around, and there was actually a time where Edey was kind of warming up by himself, and you could kind of get the build up, and as expected, people were just relentless to him the whole game. The students were. It was easy. It's what you hope it would be in that kind of environment. It's an IU Purdue game. The first time they come into Assembly Hall #1. I mean, I've been to some games. I was not there for the watch shot, but I've been to some games. I was at the game where Killingsworth hit the dunk, driving down the lane again, and that's as good as it's been. In my time, that 0-2 game against Illinois, a big one as well. But it was what you wanted it to be, especially against your arch rival. It got a little bit interesting in the second half when they're throwing the floor for a second time, and Jeremy Gray tweeted later he had to use his dad voice and to get the crowd, the students, to realize that, you know, if you throw something again, we're going to get a technical foul. And it reminded me of when Knight had to get on the PA during a game. It was probably, I think, 89 or 90. And he said, you know, we don't throw things here. And that took care of it. And I was kind of wondering if they were going to let Woodson get on the mic and do it. It ended well, but it was tense there for a little bit because, you know, you were wondering, is something going to happen like that? But it was incredible. Just experienced the whole thing. And like I said, it's what you want it to be when you're playing Purdue.
Well, and it kind of a funny argument to hear out, because, hey, if I'm at Mackey and they make that announcement, I as an IU fan am immediately throwing whatever is in my hand. Maybe even my cell phone will go out onto that court and everything to get the technical. So kind of a weird announcement to make, because opposing team could just kind of go, oh, cool, free technical. Let's have it. But yes, aggravating to have those issues happen, and there's no room for that. And I did at least see in the few shots that they showed in the stands, a lot of the students were pointing out who it was and everything. So good on those students for not protecting whoever that was or what was going on and calling that out, because you're not a narc in that situation, because we don't want fans like that. We don't want situations like that. Could you jeopardize it? Yell and holler all you want, but that kind of stuff just has no room in a basketball game. But again, overall, a very fantastic game. The next player I want to talk about, which I was shocked this morning when I looked at the stats and everything, that he only got 7 minutes. But in those 7 minutes, I felt like he did a lot for the team. I can't point to exact plays, obviously, in this, but he's been someone that's really helped us recently with those kind of off-the-stat types of plays. That person, obviously, is Caleb Banks. He is someone that we haven't seen much throughout the year, and just as of recent, coaches really kind of leaned into him, proving that Woodson kind of has that one freshman or one deep bench person that he likes to kind of pepper in there during games. It was CJ Gunn for a while. Now that's kind of been replaced with Caleb Banks. And while he's not like a big offensive force, just that energy that he brings. He's crashing the board at each time. And there's even a play early in the first half that I thought was brilliant just from a position standpoint, where IU had kind of turned over Purdue and the ball was scrambling around. One of Purdue's guards fell on the ground and had the ball at about the three-point line on the ground. Almost all of Indiana's guys had already been started to run back on offense. And by the time he secured that, he looked up immediately and tried to dish it to Edey, which would have been an easy 2 points. But Caleb Banks stayed in position, stayed ready there, and intercepted that ball. Just little plays like that aren't going to show up big time on the stat sheet, but love what his game brings for us. Martha, what are your thoughts on Banks?
I think Caleb's a guy that's really taken advantage of Jordan being out. We saw him kind of have his breakout game against Ohio State. A little bit quiet against Maryland, but you could say that about most of the team. But to be able to see him come back against Purdue, and again, a freshman in that moment, to be able, he's a guy that really lets the game come to himself. He's not going to go out there and force anything, but he seems to be in the right place at the right time, disrupt, and he's got a surprising amount of bounce. We haven't seen him a ton. We obviously got to see him a little bit early in the season, but he's a guy that can go up and get rebounds and putbacks. So again, I think it's nice to see him get this opportunity. You heard Coach say the same. He's been patient. Caleb's been patient with Coach Woodson. I think that just means he's probably been putting in his work and playing well in practice and not gotten to see a lot of game activity. So it's nice to see him get this opportunity and have a little success while doing so. But certainly for the team, I think we need that depth. When you're missing a guy like Jordan Geronimo who can come in and provide those minutes against a team like Purdue, somebody's got to step up. And it was nice to see him come in and take advantage of the minutes he was given.
Chris, your kind of thoughts on him, and then also just where you think he kind of projects in the future for IU, because he could be a major piece for us.
He's got a high motor, and we've seen guys like this that come in that are going to be a little bit more raw their freshman year, and they have the motor to progress into something more polished. I mean, I think of, I mean, I'm not making the comparison, but I think about a Victor Oladipo who came in raw and had athleticism to start, and kind of honed his skills. And again, I'm not saying Caleb Banks is the next coming of Victor, but I mean, I was really surprised to see Jordan not play. So it means the calf injury is more serious than it looked, which is concerning. But again, it's not enough. It's Woodson's mentality that if you're on the bench, you got to be prepared to contribute, and that's what he did. I mean, I expected him to come in a little minutes. He did exactly what he was asked to do. I mean, he's still going to be out of position sometimes on defense, but he's a high motor guy, and like you said, he's in the positions to deflect the balls away and to get the rebounds and to kind of be a junkyard type player in that position. And I think he's got a bright future. He's got the motor. He's obviously somebody that Woodson trusts is going to do what he needs to do when he comes in. And if he gets his offensive game more polished and he gets a shot, I mean, I felt so bad for the guy in the last game, or I can't think if it was Maryland or the game before, when he came in and was shooting free throws and, just clanking him off the back. I think, we've had several guys that be in that position. But again, I mean, he came in, especially in that first, and it was great. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. And especially when we were kind of just building that run a little bit more and kind of getting the fact that, as a team, we had 11 steals in the game, it's just overall led so much to the victory. And, if he's directly involved with that, I mean, he's in places defensively to cause and disrupts, and that's what he needs to do.
Yeah, and obviously we need to talk about in this game is what was leading up to it, a big conversation of two All-Americans coming at it and players of the year kind of candidates, high up ones, and how are they going to match up and everything. And obviously Edey's going to get his, and did a great job of limiting him in the first half. In the second half, he kind of got it going. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, this is definitely a very different Trayce Jackson-Davis than what we've seen in the past, where when he would go up against, especially last year, when he'd go up against guys that were a little bit bigger than him, a little bit more aggressive and everything like that, more physical, he would kind of shy away from it, wouldn't look to make that contact. That was not the case at all in this game. Trayce kind of, even I think on two occasions, I remember seeing it, trying to go at Edey to even posterize him at some points, trying to dunk over him. Didn't quite get that. Edey didn't necessarily block him, but just very ostentatious of Trayce to try to get those to go in on him. But just loved his aggressiveness, loved the way he attacked the double team whenever it came at him. He's able to fight through it. You even saw Painter have a timeout or two that he called out of frustration for his players on not staying strong and keeping him contained with that. But finishes with 25 points, 9 for 19 from the field, shoots great from the free throw line, 7 for 9 and everything. One turnover or one assist, 3 turnovers. Turnovers were a little rough, and that's going to happen in the double team that he faced and everything. But just a great game from Trayce Jackson-Davis. What were your thoughts on him, Chris?
I allude to what Matt Painter said in his post game, where he talked about the fact that Trayce has developed into a player that may have originally been a little bit more, hesitant and not as deliberate with the ball when the double team came and when people were bodying up on him. And he talked about the fact that the tools at his game, especially this year, are just off the charts. His motor is just incredible. And like you said, he tried to go directly Edey a couple times. The last time that I remember where he tried to posterize Edey, it didn't go well, and Edey blocked the shot. But would he have done that 2 years ago? Would he have done that? Freshman. I mean, he's doing things. And I think the thing that is just so impressive, and yes, like you said, the double team lead to the turnovers, and he did have a few yesterday. But his vision and getting rid of the ball quickly as he can on the double team, especially cross court. I think there was one specifically where he just whipped it all the way across to Miller and had a wide open 3. And I just think those kinds of things that we've seen where IU has struggled this year is when they kind of get set in and Trayce holds the ball too long when the double team comes. I think the Rutgers game is a great example of that. I mean, progressed. And like I said, he's on this tear, points and rebounds wise. That's just, I mean, it's in our lifetime, we've never seen anything like this overall.
Yep.
You talked about the double guys we've had in history, like the Allen Hendersons. I mean, Henderson, all-time leading rebound in IU history, but he didn't have multiple 20 rebound games. And, you go back to Walt Bellamy in 59-60 season and his senior season in 60-61. That's what we're seeing with Trace. And there's just so much time still left in the year. He just surpassed Allen Henderson. He's a few away Yogi, and then his coach is right in front of him at 5th. So, I mean, it's going to be amazing to see what happens the rest of the year, but I just hope that it's part winning, continuous winning. That's the more important thing. Is I hope it's fitting into their system and getting the W's more than anything.
Yeah. Martha, your thoughts on Trace's game?
Yeah, I think you both hit the nail on the head. I thought one play that really stuck out to me, and I think it speaks to, there's been a lot of questions about leadership or lack of leadership, but you look at the play where Mason Gillis had that hard foul on, I can't remember who went up for the layup at this point, but maybe it was Malik Renew.
It was Malik, yep.
Yep. And, Trace instantly was at the defense of his teammate because it looked like a hard foul. And he was right there, ready to stand up for his teammate. And I think that speaks to his leadership, having his teammates back and stuff like that. But, as Chris mentioned, the Matt Painter comments and his ability to handle the double team. I loved how when he caught the ball, he's got his back to the post, he would catch the ball, get the double team, kind of step back and face up and really, really, really require the defense to make a choice, whether to continue to double team and find that open guy, or, the double team would fade back and he'd take the ball to the hole. And I think that kind of speaks to what Coach Painter was referring to, that he's just such a better decision maker than he was with some of those double teams early on. And I would have loved to see the ball work through him a little bit more in the second half. I felt we got away from that a little bit, as Purdue was fighting to come back. But when it's all said and done, just another solid performance. Because while I've certainly watched Purdue in bits and chunks, I haven't sat down and watched them play a full game. And Zach Edey's such a problem. He's really, really good. I mean, he catches the ball within 3 feet, he's going to score. And it's a really tough ask to defend that. And then, that said, to score against that too. So all in all, really good performance by Trace. And again, I'm curious to see how he comes out against Rutgers too this week, because that's another big one.
Yeah. And very disciplined on defense, as you said, with that. Edey, obviously getting the ball in the low block like that is going to make those, and to be disciplined, and obviously must have been the game plan to not foul or really kind of go for the block like he probably would have against any other guy, to know to just wall up, do what he can, and just let him try to make those. Another great, you mentioned the thing about getting in Gillis's face and everything. He probably even saved IU from a technical foul when Jalen Hood-Schifino goes down. Coach Woodson was heading right over there to get at the refs, and Trace was the one that grabbed Woody and held him back and maybe saved a technical foul there, which was interesting. Again, that play, looking at the replay, I don't know necessarily if that was a foul. It looked worse than it was, but thank goodness Jalen was able to get up in that. The next player that I want to talk about is Race Thompson. Now, I know he's not still at 100% for us. He still struggles a little bit on us, but made some amazing plays down the stretch to put Indiana in a good position. Kind of coach put him in late, which people might have in the moment kind of thought a little sketchy about, because Malik was having a very good game himself. But to have that veteran in there at that point during crunch time was kind of a really big deal, because then Race ends up hitting 2 very big free throws, has 2 offensive rebounds, and a steal within just 90 seconds of being in during that time. So really instrumental in doing that, and great to have his little moments in there at that time. Martha, your thoughts on Race's game last night?
Yeah, clearly a guy that's not all the way back yet, right? I mean, you can tell in the play he's having a little bit of a difficult time keeping guys in front of him and not able to cut or have the bounce that he used to, and that's to be expected, right? I mean, it's still somewhat fresh off that leg injury, and you know being asked to defend against a physical team like Purdue, that's tough. But I thought all things considered, he's clearly he's going after it. He made some big plays. He made some really big plays down the stretch, and so you just to me you just have to tip your cap to him because he's giving everything he can in a moment where we have to have him do so, especially missing Jordan. And I thought Malik came in and played some very, very valuable minutes, but we also know and have seen Malik sometimes struggles to stay on the court all that long because of foul trouble. So that makes the need for Race to have a solid game all that much more important. And I thought, all things considered, while there were some moments that I thought he missed some shots he can typically make, and had some tough time defending a little bit at moments. But all in all, he made some really, really important plays in that game. And I'm not sure we win without those plays. So he's not the threat, I think, offensively that we've seen him at times in his career. But he's going out there and making winning plays, and I think that's what's important right now as he continues to build himself back to, full strength.
Chris, your thoughts on Race?
Yeah, I mean, he's a fifth-year guy, and Woodson trusts him on the floor, and still he doesn't look comfortable. And granted, he's got to wear that bionic brace on his knee. I don't think anybody would be quite comfortable wearing that thing. So, but to allude to what Martha's saying, yeah, the offensive thing, you could see there was two different times when Race had the ball at the top of the key and Edey was giving him 10 feet almost. So, we've seen Race knock down shots, obviously this season and in the past, but it's not been consistent. And Purdue was going to say, hey, if you're going to take that shot, but I think that he did an overall good job. They kept switching Trace and Race on Edey. And then obviously Race got into some foul trouble, and that's been the Achilles heel for him down the stretch the last couple of games. Is I think his mobility. They've talked about the silly fouls as a team. They're not moving their feet as much, and they start grabbing at the hips of the players, and they're going to call that every time. But I think down the stretch, Race kind of got into that situation as well. But again, he's a guy that has a high motor. When he's in there, he's your six-man glue guy type of player. Start, but he also he's a senior leader, and he knows how to play. He knows how to play in this conference, and he's the guy that is going to make the good decisions defensively down the stretch. And again, I mean, I think he did the little things you talked about. The last few minutes when he was brought back in, to get in that victory. And to me, he's going to go down for me as one of my favorite players in this last 10 years, because all the things that he's done, all the things that he's overcome with injury. And, he's not going to wow you with his offensive game. And at times his defense game, he's going to do the little things, and he's going to be someone that is going to be a part of your victory in ways that don't hit the stat sheet. So I'm glad to see him continue kind of back to where he needs to be. Hopefully in a couple more weeks, it'll just continue to improve, and we can kind of see flashes of old Race.
Yeah, Race is definitely one of those players that Hoosier Nation loves, and we're going to look back very fondly and remembrance in the future for him. He's one of those players that we love because he puts on his hard hat and gets out there and does the things that he needs to do and fights and claws for the team. He's also one of those that we have a special emotional spot for him because he's had the horrible luck with those injuries that he's had, his concussion, and this year it was just heartbreaking when we saw him go down because we saw all the emotion he has and what it means to him. So great to see him get this and everything. And that's kind of an overall statement for all the seniors and guys that have been with this team that are going to be moving on after this year, to have this big game, to have this thing to hang a hat on for this season and be a great placeholder for them. Next player that I kind of want to talk about in this game is just Trey Galloway. And he was great in this game, just doing the tough defensive things that he does. And I love Trey's game overall, the way he can be physical with us. He can get downhill and everything on us. And what he gives to this team is just fantastic. And let me bring in a new guy that just popped into this, who is showered, warmed up. Let's see how his voice is and everything. Jared, give me kind of your thoughts on being there. This is the first game of the season for you to be in attendance at. How was Assembly Hall for you last night?
It was incredible. I apologize if you can't hear me. My voice between the game and hanging out with everybody afterwards, it is not good. But man, it was just a great experience. There's just, I know there's lots of talk about Assembly Hall and it's old and there's pieces falling from the ceiling and all this stuff, but there's magic in that place, and there was magic in that place yesterday. But what was, I think, most impressive about the team's performance is the team didn't need any magic to win. This wasn't Rob Finney having an out-of-body experience and, Michael Durr stepping up and doing something he's never done. It's just all of our players who playing well, and then you combine that with, an Assembly Hall that was intense. I thought, at the beginning of the game, there's kind of a certain vibe Assembly Hall has, at least in my experience, when there's kind of a confidence level. And I felt that kind of went away in the second half when, the team's kind of struggling and Purdue's coming back. But I just give so much credit to the guys down the stretch the last few minutes. To me, a win like that is even more meaningful when a guy like Race Thompson, who's battled back from injury and, was getting criticized by people for not being able to contribute as much. And he just comes out and makes play after play down the stretch. And Jalen, who's been up and down with his shot, comes back and makes the plays down the stretch. Trey Galloway hits free throws, so it was an awesome experience. I thought it was a great performance by our guys. And, for a program that's really struggled in February, keeping the momentum going from January into February kind of feels like something that could really springboard us forward if we can, avoid what happened last year after the Purdue win.
Yeah, definitely some momentum going on right now for IU. Again, that Maryland game was a game that kind of slapped us back down to earth after a winning streak. And again, I attest that was something that was needed for this team to get them to refocus and everything and get things going. And you're going to have those ups and downs as the season goes on completely in the Big Ten. It is the Big Ten. It is what it is. But the aggressiveness that this team had and showed out there on the court, despite everything that they've been struggling through and despite the players that they don't have out there, it's just great. So we started to talk about Trey Galloway and everything. Jared, what did you see out of Trey's game last night?
Well, the first thing that jumps out, of course, is the maximum effort from Trey that you always see. But what I thought was really noticeable was, we've seen with Trey, you're always going to get the effort, but I feel like Trey almost plays too hard, and doesn't quite know, when to let up. And with him being, the only other ball handler besides Jalen, he can't, pick up silly fouls. He can't be going so hard on a closeout, or so hard through a screen that he ends up knocking a guy and getting a foul, that isn't really worth it. But I thought he was really able to toe that line between being extremely aggressive, letting whoever he was guarding know that he was going to be right there all day long with them, but not picking up the fouls. And then also I thought his offense in the first half was tremendous, whether it was, hitting an outside shot or getting into the lane. He played his role to me about as perfectly as he could, and really set the tone for perimeter defense that I thought was such a key to slowing Zach Edey down early. Now, obviously, Zach Edey ended up getting his numbers, but, I thought it was important that Zach Edey just didn't get going early, because I think there's something that can happen when Purdue gets going early and you start to get a little bit demoralized. That's one thing. That didn't happen. Indiana's defense on Edey was early. Now, late, obviously in the second half they got it going, but that's with them trying to come back, and you still feel like you're in control of the game. And so I think that sequence of events is actually important, when the points game. And I just thought defensively, Indiana's perimeter guys in the first half, it's some of the best perimeter defense I've seen. It was really, really good. They were there on the catch. They were not allowing easy passes into Edey, and Trey was the key, and so he's been a guy who's been better at home. And so I think the next step for him is to be able to, take this production, and make it a little bit more consistent. But I mean, if there's a sure thing in this program, it's Trey Galloway is going to step up in the Purdue game, and he did, man. He was great.
Yeah, yeah, and he knows that weight. He knows what it takes and what that game means to IU and Indiana overall. Another last player I kind of want to talk about is Malik Reneau. Excuse me. Had a great game. Finished with 20 minutes. Finished shooting it really well. And what I liked about his game was that he wasn't scared in this one. He was going up against Edey. He had some beautiful hook shots that he made over top of Edey that just showed that he is growing right before our eyes. Martha, what are your kind of thoughts on what you saw from Malik last night?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said growing before our eyes. It would have been easy for him to respond in the first half when he got hit hard by Mason Gillis. And yeah, Trace had his back a little bit, but I think we saw early in the season Malik is not afraid to chirp back or get in somebody's face. I think he had a couple dumb technicals early in the season. So I think from a maturity standpoint, one, I think he's progressed there, but dude didn't miss a shot. 2 for 2 from the free throw line, 3 for 3 from the field. And it was all kind of quiet, but it was all done right in Zach Edey's face. To your point, he made a couple shots. He went right up against Zach Edey and had no problem finishing against him. And I think it not only was it impressive to see, but it just bodes well for the kid's future as well. I mean, because you think about his ups and downs this season, and he's kind of fought through that. And he's back to a point now where he's playing good basketball. He's producing in the minutes he gets. So it was nice to see him fight through that. But again, when you can go up against Zach Edey and be effective doing so as a freshman, I think it really bodes well for what you're going to provide moving forward.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on Malik?
Just I thought the times that he was kind of in there and on Mason Gillis, I thought he was effective. Gillis kind of body him down because obviously he only hit the 1-3 in the game, and I think we all I was hoping. I didn't expect him to come out like he did against Penn State, but I mean he's not afraid. He's not fearless, or he's not afraid of going down against a guy named E. But the minutes were important because Race was not going to be able to play 40 minutes. We knew Trace was going to play almost the whole game. I think he set out for maybe a minute in the first half. He's continuing to be the player that we hoped he would be this year. We saw flashes of it at the beginning of the year, and I think he's got no turnovers yesterday. Exactly what you want out of him in those minutes he's coming in. So I think he's continuing to flow. He's starting to, I was wondering at some points because it seemed like him and Woodson were clashing big time on the sidelines. You could kind of see during the games where what was when he was not having it, he was not listening. So, but I think he's turned the corner, and I think that he's going to be really important down the stretch, especially in March.
Jared, what did you see? You're obviously your first time seeing him in person and everything. What are your thoughts on him just overall, and then kind of in this game, what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a macro level, what Chris said there is so important. I mean, he, really was so great early on this season, then really seemed to hit the wall, and he's busted through it, and the big thing Woody wanted from him was, to play harder. And I think, that's a double-edged sword because I think as Malik has learned to play harder, he hasn't necessarily learned how to play harder without fouling. And so we've seen him be productive, but he's fouled and he hasn't been available. And what I saw yesterday was a guy who was able to play 100 miles an hour without fouling, and even when he had 2 fouls, was able to make a huge play to get that steal at the end of the first half, find Caleb Banks for the layup, and then you talk about fearlessness. I mean, in the second half, when it was 63-59, Purdue had made a couple threes. It really felt like the momentum was starting to shift and we're struggling on offense. Malik gets it about 15 feet out, staring Zach Edey right in the face. I think most guys pass that out. Malik just calmly dribbles in, does his little shake move, and hits the hook shot over Edey like it was nothing, and that's the kind of tantalizing talent that he has. And shoot, I think it was a possession later, maybe a possession before, he threw that beautiful alley-oop to Trace. So to have the skill to do plays like that is one thing. But then for a freshman to actually be able to execute it in the second half of a huge game is quite another. I mean, I know it only said 8 points and 4 rebounds in the stat sheet. His impact felt more important than that to me. Just watching the game, I would have thought he had more numbers than that. But I think that's because every number that he put up mattered because it was in a key spot. And at the 5 minute mark, Woody takes that timeout and he pulls Malik and puts in Race Thompson. And I was sitting next to Scott Caulfield from Crimson Cast. And we're both like, "Are we sure we want to do this?" I mean, Malik's playing well. Race, struggle, a little bit up and down. And of course, Race goes out and makes all these game-winning plays. So Woody was proven right. Race was proving right. But I say that just as a testament to how far Malik has come. Because if you would have told us, hey, 3 weeks ago, you're going to want Malik Renew playing big minutes down the stretch against Purdue, it would have been like, you sure about that? And yeah, I think the way he's playing, we are sure about that. And that's a big key for why Indiana has won 6 out of 7. It was always going to be, I thought, a big part of the reason why, if this team was playing better down the stretch and could make a run in March, it was because Malik really came on. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And especially with the injuries that Indiana has had and not having Jordan Geronimo, his development has just been huge. I think he gets a lot of credit for that. The coaching staff gets a lot of credit for that.
In the macro, it's fantastic to see from him, and in the big picture, it's just so exciting to see him, the speed, the athleticism that he has and brings to this team, and is going to continue to bring alongside a Jordan healthy and back in there, and then what Banks can do and how he can develop and just continue to crash the board. It's going to be a fast team. It's going to be a fast team moving forward. It's going to be a very high energy team. So that's very exciting. Not to get too ahead of ourselves, obviously, for this. Want to kind of move forward and look at some of the stats in this game. And one of the first stats I want to bring up is just, I have the first half box up right now, and it's just amazing looking at the scoring percentages, obviously, and how the offense was humming in that first half. 62% from the field, 57 from 3, and finished the half with 1.4 points per possession. Just what you wanted to see, the way Indiana was cutting it up, the ball screen play, getting Edey moving and everything. The game plan offensively was just fantastic in the first half. It obviously struggled in the second half to get going. We got a little stagnant, but that's some stats that stood out to me. Martha, what are some stats that you liked in this game?
The ability to find a way to win. We made 4 3-pointers in the first half, didn't make a single one in the second half. I thought, even though we shot more free throws, it didn't necessarily feel like that. It still felt like we got called for a lot of ticky-tack fouls that, I'm not sure. It didn't seem like, at the end of the game that we, looking back, that we shot more free throws than Purdue. I didn't have that feeling. But again, just to be able to find a way. You look at the second half stats, to be able to find that way to win, not with the first half Trace had and not necessarily playing through him in the second half and Jalen stepping up. Those are the things that stick out to me at the end of the game. And I think Jared made a great point. Nobody had to play out of their mind. There was no Rob Finney moment that was needed to win. We found a way, even shorthanded. So I think those are the things that stick out to me.
Chris, any stats that you liked in this game?
I mean, the steals thing, we were, if you look at the box scores, we're out rebound. They have more assists, and obviously they have more turnovers. But the steals thing, especially in the first half, we were just so disrupted on defense, and I think that was, we were talking about this last night of the game, and I think they kept kind of switching. And this kind of got them in trouble in the first half of this first part of the second half, where they started to double down and they were not rotating over enough to help. And they threes going for Purdue. I was kind of wondering what the game plan was going in, if they were just going to let Edey have whatever he wanted. And we were talking about the 1992 LSU Indiana game, and basically Shaq, the whole game plan in that game was you let him have exactly what he wants the entire game, and you basically take away all their other ability to score. And it's comparison to Edey to Shaq, but the game plan to me was very interesting because I think, okay, Edey's going to you're going to let him have everything he wants. Otherwise, over the rest of you're going to have the same thing as last year, where Trace gets 2 fouls, and then who are you going to bring in to consistently guard Edey in that game, because you don't have a Michael Durr. Poor Duncombe and his sinus infection is still, that's flaring up. So we don't want that to be a problem. But anyways, so my point is, I think just the fact that, we were aggressive on defense where we needed to be. The steals, especially in the first half, got us going. And quite frankly, we let Edie have what he needed and what he wanted, and that was okay. I mean, in a lot of games, you're not going to be able to come back from a 33-point effort from like Edie, and you're not going to be able to overcome that. But we found ways to shut them down in other areas. And again, obviously in the second half, they adjusted. But I thought the fact that we could be so disruptive on defense and have 11 steals, I think is just a huge part of that box score.
Yep. Jared, any numbers for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking on what Chris said, I think Lawyer and Braden Smith were 5 for 20 combined. Smith himself was 1 for 8. And so I think that matchup, between Jalen and Braden Smith, and I think Braden Smith had 6 assists, and I thought, he did, some things. He's obviously a talented, skilled player. But I thought, Jalen's ability to score and kind of ultimately outduel him in that matchup was really important. I think the turnover number 16-8 was obviously huge, and being able to compensate for just the monstrous defense or monstrous difference in rebounding. And honestly, I think one of the most telling stats of the story of the game is just the free throw shooting. We went, 15 for 18, whatever it was. And I don't remember their exact number. It was a similar number of attempts, but they make like 53% of them. And I thought you saw a lot of those misses early when it looked like they were a little bit rattled, and when you listen to the Purdue players talk in their post-game press conference, they basically said it. We came out, we were rattled, by the environment. We just, they just came out and played tougher and harder than we did. And, as they said, we kind of got it back in the second half and settled in. But that difference was the first half. We kind of nursed that cushion there in the second half and needed every bit of it. But that's what makes this rivalry fun, is now in a few weeks we have to go up to Mackey, and our guys are going to have to deal with that road environment. And, Jalen has had his ups and downs on the road. And can a guy like Malik, can a guy like Caleb be as productive on the road as they are at home? We're going to find out. The benefit there, I guess, is we have a few extra weeks for those guys to mature before that happens. But, that was always going to be part of the formula for beating this Purdue team. I think those two guards have been better than anybody thought. Clearly, Edie makes life a lot easier on them, but they never look comfortable all game long, and that's a testament to the environment, the reality of their age, and most importantly, a testament to the defense that our guys played on them.
Yep, and that's got to be the hallmark now on Indiana's defense moving forward. The other team has to be uncomfortable at all points and at all times, and that's a great transition to even pop in to talk about the next game, which is a very big one. Playing on Tuesday at home against Rutgers, a revenge game, if you will. You feel a little bit better now going into this one, obviously being at home, being the way Indiana's playing is night and day as to what it was in that last game against Rutgers and everything. Just kind of that was the wake-up call to a degree for this team, the start of the dropout, but the reincarnation, if you will, of this team wouldn't have happened if we didn't fall so deep at those earlier on points. Jared, go ahead and speak to this matchup coming up and how better do you feel now with how Indiana's playing going into this matchup than maybe we did before?
Well, look, it's the Indiana Rutgers series, and I think we have to approach it with the proper amount of humility because they've beaten the humility into us. With, not just the losses, but the way that they've beaten us, in a lot of these games, they've dominated us, or, when it's come down to the end of a close game, they've been the ones ready to make the big plays. So a tip of the cap, respect to Rutgers, all that stuff. That said, I agree with you that I obviously feel much better about our chances in this game with the way that we've played, over the last few weeks. We've shown a different level of mental and physical toughness that I think it's going to take. And frankly, it seems weird to say, but I wouldn't. There's no one else I would rather have on the schedule Tuesday than Rutgers, because I think for a program that has really struggled to kind of follow up a really big emotional win with a good performance, Rutgers will immediately have everybody's attention. And obviously, this team kind of follows Trace's lead, and he is so important, and he has really struggled in this series. But I think there's just a personal level for him of I've never beaten them. I can't, leave without beating them. And so I think he'll be ready for it. And so, it's one of those, it's tough to say I necessarily feel confident about beating a team that we haven't beaten in a while. But, being at home, I think the fans will be ready to bring it again. I think the team will be ready to bring it again. And Rutgers is a very good team, but they're a flawed team that struggles offensively. And so if you can handle their defense and not turn it over, bring some physical and mental toughness on that end, and bring the defense, you're going to be able to hold them down because they're just not that dynamic offensively. You got to slow down Cam Spencer. I think, they're like 12-1 when he scores 11 points or, some stat like that. And so, there's a few guys defensively, that we're really going to need to key on. But, I think it's a game. If we just bring some physical and mental toughness, we match up well. The problem is the quote unquote matchups don't matter when they just bludgeon you, into not playing your game. But I think we'll be more ready to bring the fight on Tuesday than we've been in some of these past Rutgers games.
Yeah. Chris, your thoughts on this game coming up? Obviously, you'll probably be in attendance, correct?
I'm actually going to be strolling the sideline with my son's second grade basketball team. We're hoping to not be drubbed by 20 points this game. So no, I will not be there. But of all the teams that we have, it's Rutgers. And again, I agree with Jared. They deserve a lot of respect because fantastic coach, and he's really turned them into a team that's to be respected in the Big Ten and not just a laughing stock. I don't want it to be we're talking about, well, we haven't beaten Rutgers since the Reagan administration kind of conversation. I don't want that to keep happening. So I think I agree with Jared. I mean, it's going to be a weeknight game, but the students are going to bring there. And if they even bring a fraction of what they brought yesterday at Purdue, I think that's going to be on our side. Like we talked about earlier, Trace's, passing ability in the game that he's been lately, he's been really on top of it. One thing that we have to remember is that he's going to be in a lot better shape health-wise in this game than he was originally when they were at Rutgers. So I think that plays a big role. But, again, I agree that if it was any other game, I would be very worried that we would come out flat. But I think the fact that it's Rutgers, and I think the fact that we're just done with this BS with this team, and we're sick of dealing with this, again, of all the teams in the Big Ten, it has to be Rutgers. But I think we're going to come out. I think it's going to be a game because their defense just gives you fits, and that's what they do. And there's so many guys on that team that could get hot from shooting. But I think we can, if we can take care of business Tuesday, I think, look out really. But I think it's really going to be, are we going to come out flat for 5 minutes? Are we going to be down 14-3 and then trying to claw our way back? Those are the kinds of things I worry about, but I feel confident because like we've looked at, it's Rutgers. It's not somebody else.
Yep. Martha, real quick, any thoughts on this game? The Rutgers
no,
game?
I mean, I think they both hit the nail on the head, and I feel a lot better about our chances with Ron Harper Jr. not walking through those doors. So it gives me a little bit of confidence. But to both Jared and Chris's point, there's not an opponent I'd rather be facing than Rutgers on Tuesday. It'd be very easy to come out flat after a big win like we had yesterday. And there's enough storylines to get pumped up to beat Rutgers, right? I mean, they've had our number for a while. I'm excited about it. When you look at the Big Ten standings too, I don't think it can be understated that, it's a battle for second place in the Big Ten. And that's a big deal considering where Indiana was a few short weeks ago. So, it would also give them, 7 wins out of their last 8 games. Those are all big deals. And for a coach that talks continuously about getting over that hump, well, there's another hump to get over on Tuesday, and that's beating Rutgers. So again, enough storylines to get fired up and not be concerned about coming out and laying an egg. And I think the students in the place is going to be fired up to get another win on Tuesday.
Yeah, Jared, I know you got to take off on us and everything. So just kind of give me your final thoughts, either on this game or just kind of where we are overall as a basketball program.
We're good. We're a good team. And I think, you get into, and I had obviously a lot of conversations with IU fans, this weekend before and after the game. And I think a lot of us, have trust issues, with this program, just because a lot of times, it seems like, however things are going now, right around the corner, there can be just a drastic change different. things are going well, and then, oh my God, and we started losing games. What happened? But, as we just showed, things are going really poorly. We look rudderless at Penn State, and now we've won 7 out of 8. And I think the longer that this run goes of the way that we're playing, obviously, the more you can legitimately buy into it. But to me, the thing that was really on display yesterday is, that was supposedly the number one team. And, whatever you think about Purdue's, chances in the NCAA tournament and all of that, they clearly had the best resume in college basketball coming into yesterday. That was the legit number one team without an argument. And we have just as much, if not more, talent and athletic ability as they do. So even with the injuries that we have, the parts and pieces are there to be a really good team. And I think that's always been the frustration, is it's like, we know there's more here, and now we're starting to see it. This, a superstar in Trace who's fully realizing all of his massive potential. Jalen Hood-Schifino, who is inconsistent, but, as talented a freshman point guard as we've seen at the school outside of maybe one, and role players who really seem to be kind of falling into place. And so, in a college basketball season that really is wide open, because, if that Purdue team is your number one team, there's got to be at least 15, 20, 25 teams that you could say, could legitimately compete for, for a Final Four. Indiana's, I think, really positioned themselves in a good spot to not just be competitive, in the Big Ten. Whether you can compete with Purdue for the top spot in the regular season, who knows? But to be competitive for a double bye, and then to be able to get a good seed in the NCAA tournament, they're really setting themselves up, for something good. Now the schedule gets a little tougher, here in the second part of the Big Ten. But I really like what I'm seeing, and this team has really come together and come a long way from where they were a few weeks ago. And I just think, we're IU fans, man. We just want to be proud of our team's effort, believe in the strategy, that our coach is putting out there. And that was hard to do for a while. And I don't think that's been as hard to do over the last few weeks. And that just makes it a much more enjoyable experience. And I'm really excited to see where this team goes. I think it's really easy to like them. And I think it's starting to become easier to believe in them too.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Jared. Safe travels home and everything. We appreciate having you on.
Yeah. Thanks guys. Good talking to you.
Hey, Jared.
Chris, go ahead and give me your final thoughts on this game.
This obviously would have been a much more depressing morning if we had to reflect about another, what in a moment. But I think, I love the fact that this team steps up for these big games. They step up at home. The fans bring the energy and bring the bagels and share them with the Purdue fans on the Purdue team on the floor and all that, and the extracurricular stuff. I think is going to be, even beyond Tuesday. I think we win Tuesday, but Michigan on the road and then Northwestern on the road. I really am wondering what's going to be the result of that. Are we going to step up? Are we going to? Because I don't think we're going to. I think we're going to have maybe 2 more losses. I don't know where those are going to come, but I love that we went out. I don't know if we can do that, but can we sustain the same energy? Can we sustain the same game plan? Can we sustain adversity if we get down early on the road? We've seen it happen. We've seen our ability to win. If we can win at Illinois, we can win at Michigan. So I think, take care of business Tuesday in a tough game, in a good environment at home. I think, the place is just going to run us on Tuesday. But I really think it's going to be the key for me is what we're going to do against the next 2 games after Rutgers. How are we going to respond at Michigan, who's not been consistent this year? But again, any game on the road is going to be difficult. And we've seen that all year, and we've seen our shares of high lows in that regard. But like Jared said, this is when it's going to be difficult. We still have to go up to East Lansing. So I'm excited. I think, again, the one good thing from going into this year or feeling right now compared to last year is we don't have to kind of toe the tournament, and now it's just like, okay, where's our seeding going to be? What are we going to be in March? And I think that we have the ability to look forward to March in a more positive light and not have to worry about certain aspects of that. But I think it's going to be a fun ride. And I think it's, we need to take advantage of that and remember who we have on this team and who we're not going to see after this year. And and relish every moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Martha, your final thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think about, you know, the history against Purdue, and I'll call it the more recent history, when you think about Archie Miller's tenure and never beating Purdue and you know, losing 8 or 9 in a row to them, but now you know, to see Coach Woodson win 2 out of his first 3 against Purdue, and you know, I think that's a big deal, and I think Chad hit the nail on the head. Excuse me, Chris hit the nail on the head. And when you talk about it's how we respond, right? It's you know, we've got a big game on Tuesday, but then we're entering a tough stretch of the conference season, and you know, Michigan's a game that we have every ability to go up and win on the road, right? That's a game we can go up there and win. And you know, it's nice to see. Yeah, there are speed bumps, right? That game against Maryland, you know, and I think Jared talked about our Februaries of past and being kind of haunted by those. And you know, one loss has had a tendency to tailspin into multiple losses. So to see us come out and respond how we did yesterday, make Maryland kind of be the outlier of the last 8 games, you know, that's a big deal. I think, you know, we say it all the time. Coach always talks about getting over those humps, and you're starting to feel like maybe he's on to something, right? It's not just, I'm not just constantly saying getting over the hump, because we've gotten over some humps. We're playing good basketball down the stretch, and that's been a rarity. And as Chris said, you know, we're sitting here now thinking about, man, if we win a couple big games down the stretch, we're all of a sudden talking about a better seed instead of, man, how can we get off this bubble? So, you know, I like where we're at, and I'm really anxious to see how we perform down the stretch, because this team has an opportunity to play itself into a pretty solid seed.
It's a team that's playing at a different level, and it's playing with a different mentality. And I think Trace Jackson Davis kind of put it well when he said in the post game, he said, "We've played with a chip on our shoulder since we got punked by Rutgers earlier in the season, and that's the way we have to play the rest of the year." And that's how it has to be for this Indiana squad. They have to take care of business. They have to continue to play aggressive. They have to continue to play as that team with that extra edge, that extra physicality on both ends of the court, because as the pieces get healthier and as people continue to do well and get back for us, there could be times, again, where we have other injuries, knock on wood, where guys fall out in and out. And overall, I'm very happy with how this team has responded when those issues have happened. Next man up situation is what Coach always practices, and the guys have stepped up in a good way when those opportunities have had to happen. I would be remiss if I don't mention another thing. Those that are watching on video can see my coffee cup. It says, "Wake up, kick butt, repeat." That repeat is about the IU women's team playing today. So make sure you support them. The women's are playing to a sold-out crowd up in Mackey today at 2 p.m. It's on FS1. So tune into that. Let's get the Purdue sweep for the season for the basketball teams. That's really exciting. I love what the women's team is doing. So just such an exciting point to be as a Hoosier fan where we are. So that's going to do it on this edition of Hoosier Morning After. Special thanks to our special guests today, Chris Williams at IU Artifacts. There you can find him on Twitter. Also Jared Morris from Assembly Call, obviously at Assembly Call. You can find him and everything. Martha the Mop Lady, thank you for always being with me. At the Mop Lady is where you can find Martha on Twitter. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. You can find me at General Chadwick on Twitter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing the music you hear on the show. We'll be back again the morning after this Rutgers game on Tuesday, so it'll be a Wednesday morning show. Thanks for being with us, guys. Such a great time. Bask in this win. Go out there, cheer on the women. Go out there, have a wonderful day. And as always, let's go Hoosiers.